Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about something different. One of my shows that I just love, and that's RuPaul's Drag Race. Now, a few things about RuPaul's Drag Race. Of course, I've been watching it from the beginning, so I've seen every season, and I do really enjoy it. However, I think this show could be so much better. Here's a couple ways. One, it's a drag show, or a drag queen related show, I should say. So I think there should be more drag performances. I enjoy the challenges where they do sewing and they do acting, even though most of them are not actors. And they do other things like singing or lip syncing or comedy. And it's funny and I enjoy it, so don't get me wrong. But I just think there's not enough emphasis on performing. That's the main thing a drag queen does. So that's one way I would definitely improve the show if I had to say over it. Another thing I would do is have many challenges that were, again, not so much about comedy or reading each other, although it's interesting, it's funny, as it is maybe pairing them up to help each other in some way with a performance, or have mini lip syncs that lead to the one at the end. So anyway, just a couple ideas on how I think the show could be even better. But in the meantime, it is what it is. So I want to talk about some of the ways, or some of the people that are on the current season of RuPaul's Drag Race, which is of course season 6. Season 6 features an interesting cast, and of course they started out by introducing 7 queens one week and 7 queens the next week, who then met up in episode 3. And they, of course, got rid of one each of the first 2 episodes that never met the other queens. So that was kind of an interesting twist, I must say. I'd be curious to see what you guys think about that. I think, like I said, it's an interesting twist, but obviously they're not going to do it again next year, I wouldn't think. Kind of the surprise is ruined if only 7 show up the first time. So, as far as the queens, uh, one that really stood out to me in the beginning in a not good way, in a bad way actually, was Gia Gunn. Personally, she rubbed me the wrong way right off the bat. She had a very whiny voice, and also she was constantly seemed to me at least, constantly negative about things and about other people. So I didn't like her. And then the fact that she didn't know what a Tony was, a Tony Award. I mean, come on, girl. You're going to lose your gay card, or you should lose your gay card for not knowing that. Also, there were other things, like she didn't know about black and white movies, that there were at one time actual black and white movies, or why they were black and white. So it's just bizarre to me. People need to learn more. People need to do more than just look at themselves in the mirror. I mean, that's okay occasionally, but get some knowledge before you go on TV, I think, but who knows? Anyway, another one who definitely rubbed me the wrong way, but over time, was Laganja Estranja. Well, good luck with that name. I mean, if that's your biggest part, that's the best part about you, you're not going to get very far. Now, I'm not saying she couldn't improve. Obviously, she can, and I hope for her sake she does. But I think she was a lame drag queen. I think she was so stuck on trying to imitate what other people had said to her or in front of her, that she didn't come across as a drag queen on her own right. So she was also very whiny and cried several times and kind of blamed people for things that they didn't even do or that she just misconstrued. So I think part of the problem with people like Gia and Laganja is their maturity level or lack thereof. I think that RuPaul's Drag Race, the producers or the people who cast the show, they do that on purpose, obviously, so that you have some dumbass queens to watch, and some queens that are going to be whiny and immature and cry. I mean, they like that drama. I understand that, but queens like that, in my opinion, are not ready for prime time. and they are not really someone who's going to win this crown. So to put them on there in the first place means you left out other people who were much more deserving, I'm sure. And therefore, I think it's a waste. But that's just me. It does, I'm sure, make for interesting TV, and it is what they're looking for because, they've got to compete with trash like the Real Housewives and the Kardashians and things like that. So, if you're trying to compete in that kind of world where Andy Cohen, Bravo, glorifies all that stuff, then, you're going to have a Laganja, Estranja, and a Gia Gunn. But in the meantime, the good news is you have other queens like Bianca Del Rio and Bendelacreme. And from previous seasons, some of my all-time favorites have been Pandora Box, Latrice Royale, Chad Michaels, and some other people like that. So, but back to this season, right off the bat, on that first episode that they were on, of course, Bendelacreme stood out for me in her group of 7 drag queens because she had such class and she has her act together. That bitch is fierce. I'm sorry. She is fierce. I'm actually not sorry. So I really like her. I think she's great. And I'm really sorry that unfortunately last week or this week she went home. So I think was a really bad decision by RuPaul. But hey, it's his show. So he makes the decisions. In Bendelacreme, this is only going to help her career being on it, obviously. So I don't feel... I mean, look what's happened with Pandora Box. She's done nothing but have a good career afterwards that's greatly enhanced from being on the show. So same thing will happen with many other queens, including Bendelacreme. Now, Bianca Del Rio, one of the reasons she impressed me so much in that first episode this season is that her wit is so sharp, and her not only one-liners that she gets in occasionally, but just her humor that she's able to use, and she is just damn funny, or he when he's a he. He is, I mean, the entertainment value is like above everyone else, far above. And the ability to just come up with a quick response, to me it's amazing what he can do. And as a drag queen, very, very entertaining. And it's not my favorite look ever, but it's his look and it looks good and it works for him, and that's all that really matters. Whether it's my favorite or not is not the issue. He is one of my top 2 queens this season. The other one, of course, was Bendelacreme, or still is actually. But obviously, she doesn't have a chance to win it unless they maybe bring her back next week, which would be great. Darian Lake was also one of my favorites. And actually, Darian has one of, I think, the best lines of the season when she first came in. And she was introduced herself, or vice versa, to the queen that was on there named Milk. And she said, "I'm Milk." And Darian Lake said, "And I'm Heavy Cream." And she used her tits. I mean, that was so funny. I had to really laugh at that one. So, actually, I was looking at a paint color last week for the trim on my house, among several others, called Heavy Cream is the name of the paint color. And, of course, I thought of Darian Lake right away. So, great line by Darian. As far as Darian Lake's performance throughout the season, I think it's been kind of hit or miss, but I really like him as a drag queen. I think he's very talented. However, some of the looks he has given, not so much. For instance, at the beginning of this week's episode, when they had to do the 3 different looks, and he did that holographic or hologram outfit that was skin tight, that's one of the worst looks I've seen in a long time on this runway. So I'm not sure why he chose that. So he needs to maybe think about that a little bit more before he puts that on the runway. And obviously the judges didn't like it either. That's why he ended up in the bottom 2. Now, I want to talk about the lip sync between Bendelacreme and Darian for a minute, because I know there's a lot of controversy on the internet about that. And here's my take on it. I watched it again already the second time, I mean just the lip sync. And I personally feel they both did a very good job. I do think Darian was very into it and very passionate, and I get what a lot of people are saying, and I agree with it. But I also think Bendelacreme was very into it and did a great job. To me, as with the last time that they both were in the bottom and had to lip sync against each other, I think they both did excellent. Now, a lot of people were tearing Darian's performance down or Darian herself down, which I don't think is necessary or appropriate, because I think she did a good job. I think they both did a good job, and it was a really hard decision, but I do think RuPaul made the wrong one, because I don't think they should have been in the bottom two. I think the bottom two should have been Adore and Courtney. I didn't like Courtney's look. I really don't think she's that interesting of a drag queen, to be honest. She is pretty, we all know that. And Adore, I like Adore. I wouldn't say I adore Adore, but I like her. And she is on her way to being a fabulous drag queen, but I don't think she's there yet. Again, there's a maturity issue as far as not her, but her drag is not mature enough yet. I don't believe she really should be crowned the next drag superstar. So if she is, that's okay. Again, it's RuPaul's decision, and I think we have to keep remembering that. But it doesn't mean we have to agree with it. I mean, look back at Tyra Sanchez. I didn't agree with that, not one bit. But it still happened. So such is life. One other queen that I wanted to mention was Milk. Milk. I mean, first of all, Milk as a guy was definitely the most attractive this season. I think very, very nice looking. But in drag, an interesting character, some interesting looks while he was there. And, there's a rumor that he gets brought back at some point, which I don't think so now. I think that would have happened already. But I guess anything is possible. However, I think that he was too interested in being different and being a character and not wanting to fit in or change his image, some of those terms that were used. And as somebody on the panel said, and the judges, they almost always go home if they're not willing to change some. I mean, you got to remember, this is a competition. You're not changing who you are permanently. You're not changing your look permanently. But if you can't adapt, and you can't adapt to what's being asked of you, then you're not going to win this competition. And I think, unfortunately, he had to learn that the hard way. And maybe, as with a couple of the other queens this season, I think they were just mainly on there for the exposure, and that's fine. And especially when you're honest about it, like one of the early queens was that was eliminated, that's fine. But then don't expect to win, and I think they didn't. So I really think Milk is an interesting character and person, and I don't have his real name in front of me, or I would maybe use it. But I do think he has to learn, and he did maybe, what it takes to be on a show like this. So that's why I really wish when they cast these shows, they wouldn't put on people who really don't want to be there, or who seem kind of halfway, sure. Although I'm assuming when they audition, they make it seem like they definitely want to be on there and they want to win. But it's obvious from this season that some of them didn't. To sum up, I want to talk about a couple of the other queens quickly. So Vivacious is one. Vivacious seemed like a very real person, not that the others don't, and very interested in preserving the type of drag that she does, and that's great. I think, again, there was a lack of adapting at all, and she wasn't going to last long, was obvious from the start. So, and last but not least, I do want to talk a little bit more about Courtney Act. Courtney, as I said, she's a pretty queen. She's very fishy, as they say, or very real. But she, as someone said in the very first episode, she doesn't seem like a drag queen a lot of times. And I don't think you have to look like a drag queen, but I think you at least have to seem like you have changed yourself and you're not that same girl with a different outfit each week. To me, that's what she seems like, and it's not very interesting. I do want to squeeze in one word about Jocelyn Fox. If Bendelacreme doesn't win Miss Congeniality, then I think Jocelyn should. But she's really a sweetheart. So Okay, for now, I'm going to finish up, and we'll talk more about RuPaul's Drag Race next week. Take care.